Welcome to Shevchenko Scientific Society. I would like to invite Melnyczuk to the stage. He will be the moderator for this event. Welcome.
Can you hear me back there? Yes. Great. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming out this afternoon. To have great poets, you need great audiences, said Whitman, and I can see that you're going to play that part already. I want to thank the Ukrainian poets Halyna, Kruk, Lyudmyla, Khersonska, and the poets in the anthology whose work you'll be hearing tonight for their courage and tenacity, and of course for their poems. These missives which have traveled as light across thousands of miles in order to arrive here and find their fulfillment tonight. Because these messages, with all their urgencies, would go unheard were it not for the selfless efforts of the poets, translators, and editors who have given up their time and set aside their own work in order to bring them to you. They do it for no pay and at considerable cost to themselves. And I mention this because it's important to acknowledge and important for those in Ukraine who are watching this to know and mark this powerful show of support from the US literary community. Just a brief note about the venue in which we find ourselves. I thought it important to hold this event at the Shevchenko Scientific Society for two reasons. First, for those of you who might be here for the first time, the Society functions as a kind of Ukrainian Academy of Arts and Letters abroad. It's named for the poet Taras Shevchenko. As I've noted before, Ukraine may be the only country on earth which owes its existence, at least in part, to a poet. Born a serf in 1814, Shevchenko wrote in the vernacular, giving voice to the people's trials and suffering in language they could understand. He has remained a symbol of Ukraine's struggle for dignity and independence ever since. And I want to thank the Society's tireless president, Dr. Halyna, who regrets she is unable to join us tonight because of a family illness. Thanks, however, to the writer and Society administrator, great poet, novelist Vasyl Makhno for all his efforts here in setting things up. The second reason is more personal. This building, this institution, with its substantial library and archive, was a venue my grandfather, a scholar of Byzantine art and art history, frequented after arriving in this country as a refugee in 1950 at the age of 63. A true scholar, he knew 9 languages, a couple of dead ones. English was not among them. The Society offered a refuge which allowed him to continue his scholarly pursuits. I suspect it will now once more serve as a haven for a new generation of displaced scholars. As Ilya Kaminsky and Carolyn Forche note in their introduction to their singular anthology, In the Hour of War, the word war appears dozens of times in this volume. Yet, rereading it, one is struck by the life-giving force of these poems. They witness horror and injustice, and yet they call us to honor the world's need for balm within language itself, its lyric tilt and courage, the music of defiance and hope. So, to this moment, we have with us some of America's finest poets. I could spend a long time reciting their achievements, but you'll find a thumbnail sketch of their bios in your program. I will simply list the order in which they will be reading. Let's see if I get this part right. And we do have a surprise guest who is not in the program. So the first readers will be Virlana, come on in, Virlana, Tkacz, and Wanda Phipps, followed by Maya Chabra, Friedman, followed by Victoria Riddell, followed by Dan Crates, followed by Hanna Melnyczuk-Stecewycz, who will do a brief presentation about the book of her drawings and art that we've also just released, which are drawn in response to the war, followed by Olena Jennings. Then Vasyl Makhno will read the Ukrainian of Halyna Kruk, and Howe will read the English versions of the poems, followed by Carolyn, Forche, and the program will be finished up by our special surprise guest, Patricia Smith, who is a winner of so many different prizes, the Lenore Marshall Prize, just too many to list, and she's a professor at Princeton now, and thank you all so much for coming here. I turn it over now to Wanda and Virlana.
So we'll start with Take Only What Is Most Important by Serhiy Zhadan. Take only what is most important. Take the letters. Take only what you can carry. Take the icons and the embroidery. Take the silver. Take the wooden crucifix and the golden replicas.
Take some bread, the vegetables from the garden, then leave. We'll never return again. We will never see our city again. Take the letters, all of them, every last piece of bad news.
We will never see our corner store again. We will never drink from that dry well again. We will never see familiar faces again. We are refugees. We'll run all night.
We'll run past fields of sunflowers. We'll run from dogs, rest with cows. We'll scoop up water with our bare hands, sit waiting in camps, annoying the dragons of war.
You will not return, and friends will never come back. There will be no smoky kitchens, no usual jobs. There will be no dreamy lights in sleepy towns, no green valleys, no suburban wastelands. The sun will be a smudge on the window of a cheap train, rushing past cholera pits covered with lime. There will be blood on women's heels, tired guards on borderlands covered with snow, a postman with empty bags shot down, a priest with a hapless smile hung by his ribs, the quiet of a cemetery, the noise of a command post, an unedited list of the dead, so long that there won't be enough time to check them for your own name.
We've been working with translations of Serhiy Zhadan since 2002. And this one was from in the first days of the war in 2014, when the war started. And and it's from a book of his select poems that was put out by Yale in 2019, and we have a new one coming out this fall. We thought the second poem we read was a surprise that it was in here, but it's a poem we've loved, and I run Yara Arts Group, and what we do is kind of bilingual readings, which is sometimes we take one poem and interweave the languages, and the one we do that with sometimes is called The Flying Head, and it's by Victor Negorak, and it's a fun one, which is great given the topic. Okay, so I started, right? Okay, yeah. Flying Head by Victor Negorak.
It lifts up.
Вона піднімається, як голова, відрубана голова волочуди.
It speaks.
Вона промовляє вперше і вдруге, і втретє свої потойбічні слова.
I am the flying head.
Я літаюча голова.
It streaks across the sky.
На юрмішій площі навислана вскіз, її всевидюще летюче бароко.
The cut is ragged, its shadow heavy and deep.
Кров гусне в повітрі, розчахнутий зріз, тінь відкидає важку і глибоку.
I am the flying head.
Я літаюча голова.
An invisible axe is in the city.
Сокира невидима в місто війшла.
They drag the headless bodies off,
Стягнули з помосту тіла безголові.
so gaping fools can drink blood cheap.
Розжави напились дешевої крови.
Scrape that rusty smear off the
Та
forehead.
зішкребли слід іржаві з чола.
A phantom,
Привид,
a flying head.
літаюча голова. Жереш мелодрами телевізійні. Ти розглядаєш драконів за склом.
The wrecking ball from Fellini's orchestra will break through your wall head first.
Я літаюча голова.
I am the flying head.
Запам'ятай,
There's nowhere to hide.
площа приходить.
Scramble to hide.
Руківка темна.
It's ritually
Із
washed.
небеса резонансу.
Heaven's the beast.
Маска.
A mask.
Літаюча голова.
A flying head.
Я літаюча голова.
I am the flying head.
Я голова.
am the head
Літаюча
and
голова.
I.
Я
Being head am
літаюча
I.
голова.
Being
Я
head,
літаюча,
flying
я,
I.
я.
Fly, fly,
Hi, it's such an honor to read here at this society named after such a fantastic 19th century poet. And I'm reading from a modern and very wonderful poet. Lyudmyla Khersonska is from Odessa, Ukraine. Prior to publishing her original poetry, she also worked for a long time as a translator and translated such English-speaking poets as Seamus Heaney from Ireland and many others. And I sort of became acquainted with her via our mutual friend Olga Livshin, who was one of the translators of this book. Facebook, she reposted one of her poems. I started translating in the comments. We all started talking, and together with Friedman, who's also going to read tonight, we ended up all, and also Olga's husband, Andrew Junko, we all ended up translating this book together. So I started reading some of Lyudmyla's work and translating in 2019, and sadly, here we are. It's still a similar topic. But these are really beautiful poems, so I'd like to introduce with the poem. One second. Let me find it. Russian Invader Who's Forgotten All Chivalry. This came out in like the first few days of the February 2022 invasion, and Lyudmyla doesn't often, I think, write in rhyme, or not as often as her husband or many other poets I know. But this poem is in couplets, and it's quite fierce. Russian invader who's forgotten all chivalry, fear female revenge and female conspiracy. Fear Ukrainian girls, Molotov cocktails in hand. Fear our women above all in this strange foreign land. They didn't call or invite you. They weren't waiting for you. Keep an eye on your obsolete tank. They'll unscrew the pedals, rip off your mask, scratch off your face. Our long nails are the latest in fashion and grace. Our slender fingers accustomed to kitchen complexity, that's harder than your dumb vehicles. To give you apoplexy, strike you dead in the house that is someone else's home, to keep you under the rubble of a bombed-out aerodrome, to stop you getting out of the tank, put you in a cervical collar. In a Ukrainian woman's home, there's a working dishwasher, an iron on the table, a slow cooker with a steam valve. But you know nothing but shooting, nothing of salve. Our women bind up wounds, their camouflage nets unfurl, to fight you, you fool, in a foreign country, alone in the world. To turn your uncleansed life into an eternal torment of shame, we ignored Solovyov and read Kafka and Kierkegaard by name. Remember, we'll forgive nothing, you scumbag, so flee your fate. We're painting our nails now. Get out of here before it's too late. It's hard to choose just a few, but I'm going to read just one more. This was from a more contemplative and later on poem. Lyudmyla and her husband Boris Khersonsky ended up in Italy as refugees staying within a cultural society there, and this I'm an Italian citizen also, so this was a really powerful poem to me about culture and what gets valued and who gets valued and what doesn't. How nice to take a walk in the warless world. Is this China teapot worth buying? Where to change trains, where to buy tickets, guests, smiles, people, obedient tourists, lady in a wheelchair coming through, make way, polite police officers, tall waiters. Don't put the garbage out at night, seagulls will get it. Masked, mascherina, signore. Stay back from the rail, he says off stage. If a Russian missile destroyed the statue of David, I would die instantly. Or the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, I would die again. Like you could die twice. Some places never matter, some places do. War, it's inconvenient for a walk, a salad, an outfit. Bad for tourists or the Minister of Culture. The minister bicycles back from work. He will make it home. He won't be killed on the way by Russian soldiers, for whom killing is a bit of fun. In some countries, such as this one, killing is banned, as is destroying homes and scaring animals to death. These bans do not apply in countries meant to be taken over, not toured. There are people living there who don't matter, and no David for the whole world to die for if the barbarian destroys it.
Hello. So, thank you for having us. I'm going to continue with War Day 102. These were all written in real time, published in real time, read by us in real time, and at a certain point we had to stop in order to put out a book, but the poems unfortunately kept coming out. So here we are, they keep coming out. Today is yet another different war. Hello, welcome in. You don't mind the mess, do you? We had a rocket fly into the kitchen yesterday. It broke through a couple of floors. It's a real pain. It can't cook a thing. We used to have a stove here, a small table over there, with a hand-embroidered tablecloth. Please, keep your shoes on. There's rubble all over. Follow me into the hallway, where we've got 2 whole walls. Have a seat on the floor. I will lay down a blanket. Have some sweets. Have seconds. Make yourself at home. Next one is War Day 6, which is written on War Day 6. The enemy aims to destroy us right now, this morning. It's understood. It was understood yesterday. This morning it is cold. The war season has started, or more precisely, the shore in winter, the windward side. It's so boring when the enemy freezes you solid forever. Boring to listen to sirens. Standing, your foot falling asleep, gazing into the distance. Will it ever happen? Russian rockets falling into beautiful towns. Someone falls prone. We'll lie there and watch the sky. Something tall is crumbling. 2/3 left standing, a heap of shards, a heap of my living pain. The enemy wants to destroy us. Dogs howl, and sirens howl. Even the cats wail. The wind howls in the chimney. War is a pile of dust. Sorrow in your shack. Death at your gate. Scrap metal in your yard. The enemy wants to destroy us. Explosions. An airfield, a playground, a school, a hospital, a newspaper stand. All strategically important to the enemy. It weighs on his brain. All that is peaceful explodes. Even a sleeping bag. The enemy wants to destroy us. Dot. Dash. Shock. So this next one. Last summer, there was a 4-year-old special needs child with a very proud mother. A lot of you know this story. It's on her way to speech therapy one morning, and Russia decided that a cruise missile would be a good interception. She never made it to speech therapy. I'm a speech therapist. This one hit hard because these are my families. I understand the pride and the fragility of it. Her mother survived. Still keeps posting on Instagram pictures of her dead daughter with pride because she knows it means so much to that community and to the larger community. It's called There Was Once a Little Girl. The girl's name was Liza. There was once a little girl. She just learned to toddle. It would have been better for the little girl had she been born farther away from Russia, from the country of cannibals, so that it wouldn't bite off a chunk of warm human flesh, skewered on a Sarmat missile, a living human home impaled on another piece of crap from their cluttered arsenal. A full-grown military man with an amputated brain aims his lethal weapon at a toddler. So, there was a little girl born into a beautiful world where Russia happened to be the next door neighbor, and the girl is gone. If you're within striking distance of this rabid country, it will devour all of your children. Under the bib of a Russian spring for its hybrid mouth drools envious, the country that is a food court of man-eaters, beware of this country. And like I said, Irina, Liza's mother, keeps on posting on Instagram. And it's my little conceit that the way to improbably but surely defeat an enemy like this is to survive it, just outright, and forget it. So, last poem is called When I'm Just Like My Mom. When I'm just like my mom, just as pretty and young, I'll be 90 years old. For my birthday, I'll want a bottle of French perfume called Salvador Dali and chili-colored lipstick. Chile is a color spelled with a lowercase letter, not Chile, the country by the sea. In the past, they wrote on postcards. I wish you a sea of happiness and oceans of love, neither this nor that for any of us. My mom has a kind smile and a girl's soft skin. I'll have that too when I turn 90 years old. Thank you all so much.
It's an honor to read on behalf of this anthology. I'm reading a poem by Oksana Livshin, and it's called The Eastern Europe is a Pit of Death and Decaying Plums. Eastern Europe is a pit of death and decaying plums. I hide from it in the body of America, but sooner or later I'll slip from this light back down into that other, and we'll start talking about death because that is our national sport. Talking about death, sad yet beautiful, hoping that the world will hear us and gasp at the beauty and sadness. My lover spreads my fingers with his own. He was educated in good old France, then America. He also studied Buddhism and erotica somewhere near the borders of Thailand. It's good to drink wine with him and chat, but not about death or Eastern Europe, because the world's a shithole, and it's worthwhile to learn only one art, that of hopping from one pleasure islet to another, and not giving a damn about plague-infected continents with their corpse-eating flies. He kisses me goodnight and disappears into his dream as I lie in mine, full of summer sun and ephemeral sweetness. Little Europa, as a big new Herbert whispers in my ear. A labyrinth of fate. Middle Europe enters a labyrinth without a single turn, a labyrinth of fate and freshly laid brick. It enters and doesn't exit. It endures and revives, small, like newly seeded grass in the evening, strong, like the grandchildren of those that survived the war. When will I die? Someone asks in my still childish voice. But I don't hear the answer because it suddenly becomes dark in this death pit, where Miklas Rodnati is writing his last poem.
Hi, I'm Dan Cranes, and this poem is by Ostap Stavinsky, Between Hate and Love. Between hate and love, once a forest towered, and houses, no trees now, fire, no buildings. Between love and hate, see us, We walk upright. Clarity is so instant that not everyone remembers to shut their eyes. Many lie down, blinded, in the gardens on the outskirts. Those who remain see their lips as if by honey sealed, repeating words of love only, and hate. Yes, we are envoys of a flat earth. Our only vocabulary is antonyms. Those who wait for nuances from us, those who arrive here to click color photos, forgive us. Your efforts will go waste as all our gathering of stones. Our public panels at the low table lit by the lights of the stage. Forgive us. Here is our X-ray, skeletons and skin. We carry nothing else at the moment. Read two more. This poem is by Andrei Bondar, and it's called The Men of Our Country. The men of my country give up their seats on the subway to the handicapped, the aged, and to the passengers with children, but mostly they go on sitting since these categories of citizens have a pronounced tendency to die out or travel by subway less and less often. The men of my country, they are saints under a heel, with trained insect jaws with which they gnaw their way to deserved fatherhood, and later, having untied their hands, savor children's flesh, using prescribed methods of raising the younger generation. The men of my country are not mutants or perverts. They are products of secondary processing of amino acids. That is all that remains of the nation which loves and honors its heroes. Youths so roly-poly or with pit bull jaws, their love for motherhood has outgrown all discernible limits and become a signature style. The men of my country, wonderful specimens for an entomologist, for they are fragile like exotic butterflies. Pinned to a piece of cardboard, they acknowledge the value of every move, every sound, for life is an unending crime that has no justification. The men of my country blow their noses simply into their hands. For their hand is the most useful organ. For such an important deed, they usually don't have any other important deeds to consider. The men of my country make no effort. Efforts ruin the liver, and their mouths smell bad, and they have really been born to exert efforts. The men of my country prematurely descend into the grave and become weightless angels, and ideal raw material for metaphysical speculations and superfluous argument in favor of the existence of God, or what's his name. And I'll read one more by Alex Averbrook. How do you return to a town which does not exist? How do you return to a town which does not exist? To home? How to return when it no longer exists, like a heavy sorrow? Streets with changed names, swollen vessels that can't find an estuary. And how do you stand in this flood up to your throat, getting mixed up how to open the door for it, with a key on a string that you'd lost, sleepily fondling under your shirt? You can't find it now in this whirl, in the ribbons of damp fabric or paper layered tightly as rock strata, where even a landslide would not expose the interior of a mountain. Finally, to go in, turn on the light and still not see the fogged up faces, turn it off, without noticing how you'd aged, daring to ask at last, how did I die? Thick, fragrant smoke encircles pampered memory. And you lie down in bed to wake up as a 35-year-old. In that house, feeling around the bed, you get lost, looking for space amid the sullen ancestors, until you're told, with the sudden falling of soil onto a wrinkle contorted face, get ready, get ready. And not yet realizing that it isn't addressed to you, you ask, my beloveds, and where am I to go now? Where does one say goodbye to oneself these days?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out this evening, and thank you to Shevchenko Scientific Society and to Arrowsmith Press for publishing. This is the book. My name is Hanna, Melnyczuk-Stecewycz. So I just want to say a few things about how the book came to be, and then I will show some images and read some of the lines from the book. So when the war broke out on the 24th, of course, everybody was in shock, and the world was turned upside down, didn't know what to do. And I remember, speaking with family and speaking to my family in Ukraine, and I didn't know, should I go to Ukraine? What should I do? And so I went to my studio in my home and started to work on drawings. Prior to this, I had been working on children's drawings, so they were very colorful and whimsical. And suddenly, I couldn't see that anymore. All I saw were images that were very much more disturbing. And obviously, I was reading the paper and seeing a lot of things that I needed to put down on paper to relieve all the emotions I was feeling from the war. So the title of the book is sort of interesting because when I spoke to my cousins in Ukraine, they said very early on, they said, don't forget us. And I said, what do you mean by, I didn't really understand what they meant. And they knew the war would probably be a long war. And they knew people could become numb to this, and it could become just the news of the day, as it can be. And so the title, Don't Close Your Eyes, sort of comes from that conversations with my cousins that I had. I want to just tell you this book is dedicated to my parents who taught me how to be Ukrainian in America, and to all the brave heroes who have laid down their lives for freedom for Ukraine, and to all the heroes of Ukraine. The order of the drawings is not chronological, but it is, the images sort of convey a story. I'm going to show some images from the beginning, middle, and end of the book. And I'm going to need an assistant. So here's my assistant, Ivan. Okay. They expected to be home by spring, but a surprise awaited them on the other end. Day 6. These were a bit of a diary. 2. Close the sky. 3. That was, you heard that all the time. And how do you depict that? Day 20. Take what is only most important, said Jadan. Day 19, it's called Mourning the Ukrainian Soldier. He was a soldier, they said. He was my father, I said. Day 37, it's called Dear Son. You cry so much, mother, you don't stop sobbing. I can't see your face well, but faces don't matter much. Your hair, I still remember, smells of cornflowers. Katerina Kalitko. Day 60, Death of a Young Mother. When I die, tell the carpenters to take down the rafters and ceiling. Oksana Zabushko. Day 7. His body like a stone made of feathers. He felt it rise. No, it's not day 7, it's just image 7. Okay. Day 31, called hiding. Yellow sunflowers filled her eyes. She held her breath, her body motionless. This is called grief, day 49. Whose son are they burying today? They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lawrence Binyon. And this is the last one. I love this quote. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Maya Angelou. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you to Oswald and thank you to everyone for coming today. I'm going to read 2 poems by Yulia Musakovska. They're both from her book, The God of Freedom, and also, of course, published in this anthology. The Vow. Do you take this man with his extreme sense of justice, with his broken sleep, his dual nature, one of his faces an oasis and the other a sandstorm, with wrinkles scattered around his eyes when he smiles, with his head full of complex numbers, casual connections, details of precise accuracy? Do you take this man to be quiet with him more often than talk, this silence being more valuable than any conversation? Do you take this man to burst into all-night diners, to peel an apple and touch a delicate vinyl record with 2 pairs of hands, to wrap your legs around him as if around a tree trunk, to part as butter beneath a knife, to revolve around your access to life his way? Do you promise to insert and take out needles, to rip off and put on bandages, to freeze disputes, to not pour too much milk into his coffee, to withstand unbearably long pauses when he turns his back, to kiss as greedily as if choking on water on a hot day? Do you take this woman with her maladjusted mechanics, concealed scars, with her collection of hearts in the pockets of her dresses, with her pile of errands that never get smaller, with her dyslexia, holes in her memory, her bitten lip, with her big purse that holds random items and a lot of freedom? Do you take this woman without reading her poems, without reprimanding her, to get angry with her but chase her fears away, to revel in the faults that our perfection is made of, to preserve your day's plan when you're together? Do you promise to tiptoe around when she's carrying out her ideas, to come as a peacemaker to her hot spots, to stray from the right path with her, to enter into arguments and philosophical disputes while never stopping to grow into each other? In a rented Soviet-era apartment and on a crowded local train and in the attic of your parents' house and in your own home with large windows and white walls and in a hospital ward filled with desperation and hope and in a hotel room where the sea replaces the floor, until nothing do you part. And the next poem is called Such Love. Such love it is, a hot lump in your throat. It is without any half-tones or relative meanings. loved not half-heartedly, but with the full sun and sea. It is loved hyacinth-like, violet-like, and unconditionally. It is so uncovered and raw like an early morning. It is so striking you can't tell if it heals or wounds. It has been promised. Your knees go weak and your armor is broken. It is like a long-awaited train stop that you missed on purpose. It is like a roar and a voice amidst it saying, it's just a thunderstorm. It is like a street musician that has been slaughtered at Pidzamshe. It is like ram boats in rivers that have gone shallow, like 155 children deprived of their father's care, like the names of the lost places which you are never tired of saying, like the highest grace and the worst curse, like the black grass, bird's nest turned to ashes and the whisper of the void. Such love it is which has grown deep into you and will never let go. Thank you.
I'm gonna read in Ukrainian Halyna Kruk's book, A Crash Course in Molotov Cocktail. The first poem in Ukrainian titled Повертаюсь в автобусі тихих дітей. Повертаюсь в автобусі тихих дітей, мовчазних матерів, серед клунків зимового одягу із далеких країв, де були нещасливими, але в безпеці. Сумними, з очима назад, де щоночі чекали на транспорт до станцій своїх і нестерпно хотіли зустріти когось, хоч одного, когось, хто потвердить, що їхні міста існували. Що все це не вигадка, дім, намальований дітьми під сонцем, бо сонце ж уміють усі, але дім все ж далеко не всі. Чи тата і маму не всі. Довго вчились речей довоєнних, умінь попередніх ще завше, аніж повертатись додому із різних країн ще довше, аніж забувати звук вибухів, чийсь крик передсмертний, порожню баклажку на воду для всіх. Що в тому підвалі були, що в тому підвалі лишились, хлопчик малює кота без ноги, і людей, що не вийшли, і себе мовчазного малює червоним фломастером, червоне кричить за усіх, а чорне усіх, що не вийшли, ховає. Автобус везе нас додому крізь ніч, попри пам'ять узбіч, попри страх, що ні міста, ні дому немає.
From Olena, Kruk. I return on a bus full of quiet children. I return on a bus full of quiet children. I return on a bus full of quiet children, silent mothers, with bundles of winter clothes from distant lands where they were safe but unhappy, sad, eyes looking back, where they waited each night for a return trip, longing to meet someone, anyone, to tell them their cities were still there, not made-up homes drawn by children beneath a sun, because everyone knows the sun. But home, far from everyone. But dad or mom, not everyone. It takes so long to relearn pre-war things, former skills, even longer than coming home from various countries, longer than forgetting the sound of explosions, someone's dying scream, the empty water canister shared by everyone in that basement who stayed in that basement, A boy draws a cat without a leg, and the people who never came out, and he draws himself silent with a red felt pen. Red screams for everyone, and black buries the ones who didn't come out. The bus carries us home through the night, past memories on the roadside, past fear that neither home nor city is there.
And second poem – Історія людства. Уникати чиїсь війни, аж діждатись своєї. Малювати комусь на грудях мішені перевіреної форми. Ще ніколи ми не підходили так близько до краю світу, тримаючись дружно за руки. Не зазирали за край так допитливо, такі безпечні. Як там глибоко, скільки летіти? Чи перші пом'якшить падіння наступним, світи передзахідний, до якого все ще не доходить світло, від далеких зірок, давно вже загаслих, так рівномірно лягає, що ніби й нічого не сталося. Так гостро заломлюється у водах, очах та інших відтепер непроникних поверхнях. Так відчайдушно відбивається від металу, ніби все поставлене на закривавлену карту світу. Те, що відбилося від рук, більше не дається в руки. Звикати до темряви, чистити зброю, берегти набой.
Thank you. Thank you to the translators. This is extraordinary to hear these poems in both languages. Thank you to Oswald. Thank you to Carolyn. Thank you to all of you who participate in bringing this world close to us. The history of mankind. To avoid someone else's war until you get your own. Draw targets on people's chests in the regulation shape. We've never come so close to the world's end, holding each other by the hand, never peered over the edge so casually, curious, how deep is it? How far down? Will the first soften the fall for the rest? Light still reaches the twilight world from distant stars long since extinguished. It settles there so evenly, like nothing's happened. It's refracted so sharply by water, by eyes, and other henceforth impenetrable surfaces. It's reflected so desperately by metal, as if all bets were on one blood-stained map of the world. You'll never get back what's out of hand. Get used to the dark. Clean your weapons. Save your ammunition.
Thank you to the Shevchenko Society. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, translators, Saskold, Aerosmith Press, and all the poets. I want to tell you a little bit about this anthology and how it came to be, because it was done with lightning speed in the early hours of the invasion of February 2022. Both Ilya Kaminsky and I were having insomnia, and we started texting back and forth, and we'd stay up all night when it was day in Ukraine, and we wanted to do something. We didn't know quite what yet, what could be done. And then Askold said he would do an anthology. We could do an anthology with Aerosmith. We would have about 50 pages, and we should put as many poets as we can, and we had 5 months. And we had to do everything in the 5 months, gather the poetry, do the bios, get permissions. Well, we didn't get permissions, but it was an amazing work that we did together, mostly over email, and we made it. to the deadline that we had. And a lot of things were sort of magical about this. I wanted to tell you that, Ilya Kaminsky is from Odessa. And Lyudmyla Khersonska was his first English language teacher. And he said, but I didn't learn very well from her. So when he got to the United States, he had a lot of English to keep up with. She said he was good, but she, in the beginning of this war, this present war started in 22, she tried to fortify her windows with stacks of newspapers. Her husband, in the middle of the war, stopped speaking his native language, Russian. He was a Russian-speaking Ukrainian, and switched to Ukrainian, both in his everyday life and in his poetry. And Ilya and I wondered, what does it mean for a poet to leave their language? But he made that decision. And many things like that. We learned many things about the people in the anthology. Some of them were still in Ukraine, some had fled, we didn't know where they were. And so it was a very important work. It was urgent for us. We had to make this happen. We wrote the introduction really quickly, going back and forth, sending each other sentences. I've never done that with anyone before. And then I was staying in France with a painter friend, Ashley Ashford Brown, and he was making a series of very large paintings of rooms that had been swept clean. And they were beautiful, austere, quiet paintings. And then he started painting this one, the only painting that has a room with a hole in the wall, the only painting that looks like this. And then he started painting this little teddy bear on the floor. And he said he realized that in his consciousness, it was Ukraine coming out onto the canvas. And so I said, can I have that painting for the cover of our anthology? He said, yes, I would be honored. It would be wonderful. So those are some of the little things. And I want to say one more thing. War, extremity, incisors human consciousness. It makes a wound. It makes a mark. That wound, that mark is legible in the language written in the aftermath, regardless of the subject matter of the poetry. And Ilya came up with another metaphor that I thought worked really well. He said, poetry is like a seismograph registering the shifting of the inner life of the human poet. So the seismographs, this poetry book is filled with seismographs. I'm going to read In a Country Where Everyone's Name is Fear by Lyudmyla Khersonska. In a country where everyone's name is fear, it's good that you don't see a thing and don't hear a thing. Say to anyone, not a thing. Slip nothing in your bra, keep nothing in your pocket. In both ears, nothing. In two eyes, nothing. Blind feet, no looking back. No looking back. If you look back, my brave, if my brave you look back, my brave you say nothing. When you arrive to a new destination, they will learn nothing from you. They will learn what nothing is. And this one is, we began this book, I want to say, it's a book written by many poets and translators, but we decided not to arrange the poets in alphabetical order and not to arrange them by order of birth, because we began to realize that the poetry is one collection of poems and it tells a story. So when you read it, I really recommend that you read it from the beginning until the end. It begins with a poem, this poem, In the Hospital Rooms of My Country. Ukrainians, forgive me for anglicizing the Cyrillic here, but it will work better in the translation if I do that. In the hospital rooms of my country, letters of the alphabet go to war, clinging to one another, standing up, forming words no one wants to shout. Sentences that are blown by the mines in the avenues, stories shelled by multiple rocket launches. A Ukrainian word is ambushed through the broken window of the letter A. other countries. Watch how the letter E loses its head, how the roof of the letter M falls through. The language in a time of war can't be understood. Inside this sentence is a hole. No one wants to die. No one speaks. By the hospital bed of the letter H lies a prosthesis it's too shy to use. You can see the light through the clumsily sewn up holes of the letter F. The soft sign has its tongue torn out due to disagreements regarding the etymology of torture. There is too much alphabet in the hospital rooms of my country. Too much alphabet. No place to stick an apostrophe. Paint falls off the walls, showering us with words incomprehensible like men who, in wartime, refuse to speak. So the book begins with alphabets going to war, and the last poem in the book ends with, I am writing, and all of my people are writing. So this is why we thought it was all one collection. And now I want to call my dear friend Patricia Smith up here to close with a final poem.
Hi, thank you, Carolyn. I have a reading later tonight, but I came in a day early because Carolyn was sharing a panel called Women Writing War, and I wanted to be there, and after that, I knew that I had to be here. And I'm a firm believer that you are guided toward the voices and the stories you need exactly when you need them. And as much as I've tried to walk away from the knowledge that we are, every one of us, either remembering a war, fearing the coming of a war, or in the midst of a war. And I cannot thank you enough for the images of that resounding fact that whose son, whose daughter, whose brother, whose sister, whose father, whose mother are we burying today? And that's a question that I've asked myself here time and time again. So I'm very honored to be here, and I have to thank Carolyn very much for inviting me. And I've had a absolutely revelatory time listening to this work, and it is in the process of changing me in many ways. I'm about to read the poem When You Clean Your Weapon by Boris Humanik. When you clean your weapon, when time and time again you clean your weapon, when you rub strong smelling oils into your weapon and shield it from the rain with your own body, when you swaddle it like a baby, even though you've never swaddled a baby before. You're only 19, no baby, no wife. The weapon becomes your only kin. You and the weapon are one. When you dig trench after trench, when you dig this precious, this hateful earth by handfuls, every other handful reaches your soul. You grind this earth between your teeth. You never will have another. You climb into the earth like into your mother's womb. You are warm and snug. You've never felt this close to anyone before. You and the earth are one. When you shoot, even when it's at night and you don't see the enemy's face, even when night hides the enemy from you and you from the enemy and embraces each of you as her own, you smell like gunpowder. Your hands, face, hair, clothing, shoes, no matter how much you wash them, smell of gunpowder. They smell of war. You smell of war. You and war are one. Thank you all.
I really can't thank all of you poets, translators, editors for coming out and reading tonight. This was, you know what? Yeah, war changes things. War changes you. Being so far away from it, you wonder what your relationship to it is. And I don't know that there is any easy answer to it, but there is a way in which a response was given tonight. I want to thank the translators who weren't able to be here with us this evening. Olga Livshin, Andrew Janko, Ilya Kaminsky. I also want to thank my team at Arrowsmith Press, Laura Stecewycz, Rebecca Pacheco, Catherine Parnell, Natalia Shpilova-Said, Rohan Diaz, with a special shout out to our senior editor, master book designer, who translated what Yeats calls these mouthfuls of air into these tangible, beautiful objects. Finally, I'm going to ask the translators and editors to come up to the front and sit down and sign some books. I'm going to ask you to buy multiple copies. And I want to mention that the book of art by Hanna is all the proceeds from the sale of the book of art are going to be donated to support Ukrainian booksellers, publishers, and artists. Thank you so very much for coming out to this event. Thank you all for taking part in it. Deeply grateful to you all. Oh, sorry. I need to remind you, I've been asked to remind you all that there's a reception upstairs on the 3rd floor immediately following this. So grab a book and then get something to eat and drink. Thank you.
Oh.
Wow.